I'd like to call the meeting to order. And is there any changes to the agenda?
Your agenda reflects, the agenda on your desk reflects the current agenda. So if you will adopt the one that's on your desks.
Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move approval. Second.
Motion second, to adopt the agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Need approval of the February 14, 2013 minutes, or if there's any additions or corrections, need to know them at this time.
Move approval as reported.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second to approve the minutes of February 14, 2013. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are now official. Council members, Buddy? Somebody else besides him?
Thank you very much. I'm here, Councilman Buddy Baker, District 20, representing Mr. Maxwell on number 6 on the agenda, Watts Lane. This cabinet shop has been there for over 60 years, and Mr. Maxwell just wants to get this rezoned. He's not planning on doing anything with the property. He wants to get it rezoned for line of credit value of the property and everything in case they need to buy equipment and everything to keep the cabinet shop running. And I appreciate y'all's support on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilman in the audience that I've overlooked? No items on deferral in.
That's correct. No items to be deferred or withdrawn.
Okay, items on consent.
Okay, before we move to the consent agenda, as information for our audience, if you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Planning Commission today, you may appeal that decision by petitioning for writ of cert with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Planning Commission's decision. To ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met, please be advised that you should contact independent legal counsel. Now, moving on to the consent agenda, items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or a member of the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. Okay, so I'm going to read off the items proposed to be on the consent agenda today. On page 5, item number 1, this is a text amendment on non-conforming lot area. It's a request to amend the zoning regulations pertaining to bulk standards for single-family structures on lots containing less than the minimum required lot area, and then also adding a reference to Table 1712-020D. Staff recommends that you approve the revised ordinance, which is at your desk. Also on page 5, item number 2 is the Mount Laurel Reserve. This is a 4-year review of the Mount Laurel Reserve Specific Plan District to determine its completeness for property located at Hicks Road, approved to permit the development of 129 townhomes. Staff recommends that you find the specific plan district to be inactive and direct staff to prepare a report to the council recommending that the property be rezoned to RS 80. Moving to page 6, item number 3, Abe's Garden at Park Manor. The 4-year review of the Abe's Garden at Park Manor specific plan to determine its completeness for properties located at 115 Woodmont Boulevard, approved for an independent living, assisted care, and nursing home facility. Staff recommends that you find the SP district to be active. Item number 4 on page 6 is Mercury North. It's again the 4-year review of the Mercury North specific plan to determine its completeness. It's for properties located at 811 Elm Hill Pike and at 416 Murfreesboro Pike, approved for a boarding house and an existing motel facility. Staff recommends that you find the specific plan district to be complete. Your next consent item is on page 6, item 7. This is BL 2013-372, sponsored by Councilmember Gilmore. It's a request to rezone from CF to MUIA property located at 2007 Terrace Place, and staff recommends approval. Next on page 7, item 9, is the Jackson Business Park. It's a request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for a portion of the Jackson Business Park commercial PUD overlay. It's located at 3001 Owen Drive, zoned AR2A, to permit an addition to an existing distributive wholesale business. Staff recommends approval with conditions. Item number 10, Nashville Christian Towers. A request to revise the preliminary plan and for final site plan approval for the Nashville Christian Towers residential PUD overlay located at 100 Foothill Court, zoned RM40, to permit the construction of a parking deck. Staff recommends approval with conditions, including an additional condition that Water Services has provided and is at your desk. Item number 11 is the Brentwood Branch Estates Concept Plan Extension number 4, a request to permit the extension of an approved concept plan for 1 year from its expiration date of March 27, 2013, for the Brentwood Branch Estate subdivision for 8 single-family clustered residential lots located at 501 Broadwell Drive, Hill Road unnumbered, and Trousdale Drive unnumbered, and it's zoned RS20. Staff recommends approval of the extension of the concept plan to February 28, 2014. Moving to page 8, the Pleasant Hill. Pleasant Hill, it's a re-subdivision of a reserve parcel B. This is a request for final plat approval to create 1 lot and remove the reserve status on property located at Green Acres Drive unnumbered and on a portion of property at 249 Green Acres Drive, and that is zoned RS20. Staff recommends approval. And finally, under other business on page 8, number 13, employee contract amendments for Jennifer Carlett and Catherine Withers, and staff recommends approval on that item as well. And that's the end of the consent agenda.
Commissioners, you've heard the request that these following items that I'll read out be on consent agenda. Item number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. There's a motion to set those on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question for staff. There was a letter from Councilman regarding a project on Sevier Lane, I believe. Is that one of the items that's on consent?
It was pulled.
It was pulled. Okay, thank you.
There's a motion to set these on consent.
I'm going to make a motion to put on consent.
Second.
Motion second for those items to be on consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items have now been approved on consent. For members of the audience, there'll be 3 items that will be on public hearing today. Is number 5 for the Cathedral Homes Park, number 6 Watts Lane, and number 8 Salem Town Conservation Overlay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just mention and introduce on the consent agenda, we had 2 personnel appointees. I just recognize Jennifer Carlett, who will be new Assistant Planning Director, and Catherine Withers, who will be a new Community Plans Manager. So, and their first assignment is to go to a community meeting tonight, so they'll be leaving shortly and heading to Bellevue.
Spreading out here.
Commissioners, this is item number 5. It's the Cathedral Homes Park SP. It's a request for a zone change from the RS5 zoning district to a residential SP. Staff recommends approval with conditions. The site is in East Nashville. And you can see from the slide, it's across the street from Shelby Park, specifically the Vinnie Links Golf Course. Again, the zoning is RS5. It's a single-family zoning district. It would permit 3 3 dwellings based on the current lot layout, and based on the size of the site, it could be subdivided to accommodate about 6 lots, or at least 6 lots. The policy is neighborhood general. It's a residential policy that recommends up to 20 dwelling units per acre with a site plan-based zoning district such as an SP. And this proposed SP district would be approximately 14 dwelling units per acre. Here's the site plan. The SP proposal is consistent with the density and design principles of the neighborhood general policy, with the 10 proposed dwellings placed along the Sevier Street and 18th Street frontages and parking placed to the rear along an existing alley. The development will improve the functionality of this block pattern through the introduction of sidewalks along both street frontages, dedicated on-street parking spaces on Sevier Street, and a widened alley along the property border in the back of the site. Here are conceptual examples of building elevations that were submitted with the SP. Architectural design elements were also submitted. Staff recommends approval with conditions of this SP. This is an appropriate location for additional density in this neighborhood. The site is on the edge of a neighborhood. It has strong access to open space, and the density will help to activate the street frontages surrounding Shelby Park. Thank you.
This item is open for public hearing. The applicant is allowed 10 minutes. You can reserve 2 of that for rebuttal if you'd like.
I would note you do have a letter from Councilman on this item in your packet.
Is the applicant or the representative in the audience? Is there anyone in the audience in favor of this would like to speak? Anyone in opposition that would like to speak? If you'd come forward to the microphone and give us your name and your address, you'd be allowed 2 minutes each.
Thank you. My name is David Grisham. I'm at 1807 Electric Avenue, which is the street behind the development. And then,
my name is David Petrelli. I'm at 1806 Electric Avenue, which would be sharing the alley from the proposed development.
basically, our concern is that the new development is a little bit dense for the area that we've got. The proposed development of 10 units with 5 feet in between. We are really happy about the development coming to the area, happy about the sidewalks. We think there have been a lot of things that are really great about this development, but I think the number of units per density are too high. You know, I could see something more along the lines of 6 or 7 units, such as right across 18th Avenue. There was recently 3 lots bought there. It looks like they might have been turned into 4 lots at the most, kind of sticking with the neighborhood feel. They just built a new house there. They tore down an old one, built one new house, and then I think they're going to either build 2 more or sell off 2 that are there. You know, that's the kind of redevelopment we're looking for. And, you know, I work in Germantown right next to where 2 of these developments have gone up, and have been able to walk around and see, and, you know, the tight spaces in between these homes are just not very conducive as far as, I'm an architect here in town too, so I'm a little bit more on the design side of things and just look for good design, and I don't feel that this tight of a density is good design as far as a townhome setup.
Okay.
I would only add, I'm in full agreement with what David was saying, and between the sidewalks and just the look of the buildings, I mean, we were really excited to hear that there was going to be development there. I've lived there for going on 7 years now, and I'm really proud of my neighborhood and really love it. It just seems to me, you know, I would look out directly back onto all of them, and it's just very, very, very dense for 3 acres. I would love everything about it. It just seems like too much to me.
Especially being 2 stories.
Especially being 2 stories, exactly. When there really aren't very many 2 stories, even of the rehabbed and developed houses in that general area. So we are very much in favor of something being done, just not that dense and that many dwellings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none, is the applicant come in? Okay. The applicant's not here, the representative not here. You are the applicant. Okay, you're allowed 10 minutes if you'd like to make your presentation, and you can keep 2 back for rebuttal, but since you're going second, they will allow them to come back and say anything that they would like to.
Well, I'm Jeremy Walker. I work with Michael Garfoldo, which is the property owner. We have bought the property. We're looking at trying to develop the area to help, densify the area some. We think that we've built in the area for 13 years now, and we feel like we know what the neighborhood is consisting of, and it's kind of seems to be that it's going more this way in a lot of the areas. So we feel like with the style of the homes that we're putting in there, that would be matching what is already existing there as well as what is growing in the area. The houses will actually kind of sit off the property, off the road frontage quite a bit. So I don't think it's going to feel as overwhelming on the street frontage as you would see on some of the other properties that are like this in the area.
I'm John Goff, and I'm the engineer for Cathedral Homes. And as they've indicated, what they've tried to do is pull the houses back off the property line some. They've added street parking to accommodate that. They've also added a great deal of green area in the center of the property, and it's going to be very open. Approximately 30% of the parcel is what will be impervious, and the only other item that they've done is they've added back in the back. They've taken most of their parking and put it in the alley out the back, and it looks like a very good development. We would appreciate you all approving it.
Thank you. It's a little uncommon to do it this way, but since the applicant wasn't here and y'all went first, if one of you want to say anything in rebuttal to that, I'll give you a minute to do that.
It's just real quick, kind of a wrap up. You talk about studying the area and the density, and that's the direction that area is going. I haven't seen any examples of that zip code going that direction. Everything has been single-family homes, very little townhomes going in over there. And so I'd want to see some more proof of how that density kind of matches with the area and will be supported in future, the direction of the neighborhood. Because thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion second, close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman?
I just, a couple of things that I'm looking at here, wondering how much space is between these houses in terms of
5 foot.
5 foot from one wall to the next wall?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the houses that are around here, are they all, I guess I'm asking as to the staff here, are these single story, one-story homes? Are they two-story or?
There are a combination. I guess on this street there's more one-story. They do tend to be more one-story, but there are a few two-story along this. I think there's one two-story along the street that I can think of, and along Electric it's mostly one-story along Electric behind.
Okay.
The new houses being built across the street are two-story.
Are they narrow 2 stories, or are they filling up an entire lot? Or
Wonder that you can flash a picture of what they proposed.
so are the two-story houses being built, are those that exist, or are they like narrow structures like this, or are they more traditional, wider?
They're on wider lots than this. They are on wider lots.
Okay. I noticed in Councilman Westerholm's letter that he indicated there was a meeting in January. In that meeting, was there ever any discussion about reducing the number of the units to make it less dense?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Okay.
Phil?
I do want to just clarify a couple of things. I think there was a statement made that these were not single-family homes. They are two-story, but they are single-family homes. Isn't that correct?
That's right.
All right. And did you say that actually under the SP that we could squeeze 14 on there?
No, that's the current density, that's the proposed density of this project would be 14 dwelling units per acre. But under the current zoning, they have enough land area to subdivide up to 6 lots on the site. That'd be under the current zoning district.
Okay. So, but is 10 the maximum number that they can?
The land use policy, the neighborhood general land use policy has its top recommendation of 20 dwelling units per acre. So the 14 proposed is still within the land use policy recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Basically, it looked like a good plan to me.
Judy?
I just wanted to ask about the story, the height of them. So the houses behind them, will they overshadow them?
The site slopes down from the back to the front. So the tallest point on the site is back by the alley, and it slopes down.
Okay.
So, I can't speak to how tall the houses will be, but they'll be placed up along the street frontages, and they'll be kind of down the hill from the alley. So I think the appearance and height from behind will be minimized because of those two factors.
What about the two sitting there by themselves? Is there some slope there?
There is some slope there. It's pretty much an even, at least back in this corner, back here, it's pretty much an even slope, or a steady slope, I should say, from the alley down to the severe street frontage.
Okay, thank you.
Hunter?
I have a question. Did you say this site's currently vacant, completely vacant?
Yes, it is vacant.
Okay, and it's not in a historic zoning
No.
overlay? Okay. There's at least one example in this general area, zip code, at Martin's Corner of, I guess it was probably a cottage development that was, or maybe it was pre-cottage development, Rick, I'm not sure, but similar type structures, 2 stories, higher density than the adjacent properties. And I think where we've got vacant land, no historic structures, these kind of opportunities are good to increase the density in our neighborhoods with homes that appear, based on the photographs that we saw, to architecturally fit in with the neighborhood. I understand the neighbors' concerns, and this really is, this is kind of an edge of the neighborhood. It's kind of the back of the neighborhood. Martin's Corner is really in the center of the neighborhood, so it's a little bit unusual to be looking at. This isn't officially a cottage development, but it's very similar to a lot of the cottage developments that we've approved, sort of on the edge of a neighborhood. But I guess as far as the height goes, under the current zoning, they could build 3 stories. Is that correct?
That's right.
Of course, it'd be fewer units, but they could build, I guess it sounded like maybe up to 6 units if they re-subdivided it at 3 stories. So this would actually limit the height from what they currently are allowed to do. So those are my thoughts.
Stuart?
So this is a rezoning that is well within the plan and on the edge of a neighborhood, and that has added insets for parking off-street parking, which the councilman is supporting. I've actually had examples of this, the builder building in the Hillsborough West End area where I live.
And I have to say he's done a remarkable job of matching the setback and blending in, frankly. I know we can't always go by that, but it looks like the plans indicate that's what this is. I think, it seems to me like it's a good thing to offer choices like this. It's already single or two-family residential, so I think I'll be supporting this.
Greg? Andre?
Yeah, the diversity of housing choice was what I was interested in, and also sort of the trends of smaller homes required from the market to create that opportunity for that choice and diversity here. I think it's going to be exciting to have those houses right fronting on the park, and there will be a lot of people who want to be there. I understand the neighbor's point about how it's different and new maybe in that area. But I think if it's complementary and we're looking at an empty site as opposed to some of the others, I think it's kind of exciting.
You want to make a motion? Motion second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, Watts Lane.
Commissioners, this is item number 6. It's the Watts Lane SP. It's a proposal for a zone change from the R6 zoning district to a mixed-use SP. Staff recommends disapproval. The site is about a quarter mile to the east of Charlotte Pike on Watts Lane. There's an existing cabinet-making business on the site. It's defined as a light manufacturing use. According to the Department of Code's records, it's existed on this site since before 1960, and it is a legally non-conforming use in the R6 zoning district. R6 zoning allows for 1- and 2-family residential. And looking back at the aerial, you can see that this site is surrounded by residential development on all sides, single-family residential to the north and to the east on Watts Lane and Watts Terrace, and multifamily to the south and the west. Because this is a legally non-conforming use, permits can be pulled for the continuation of this use or for the operation of this use, and even for the expansion of the use. It's planning staff's understanding that the applicant requests the zone change not for reasons of permitting, but for the ability to secure loans related to the business. The land use policy is T3 neighborhood evolving, and this is a residential policy that generally permits higher densities, but it still does not recommend the approval of a light manufacturing use or similar non-residential land uses. Here's the SP plan. Land uses in this plan would be limited to single-family residential and light manufacturing uses. There was a revised condition that was put in your places, further limiting the uses to just the current use, the cabinet-making use, just as an additional, a revised condition of approval. But the recommendation is still disapproval. But the size limit would be 5,000 square feet. The SP would prohibit outdoor storage and any signage related to the business, and the existing business would be, through the SP, limited in its ability to expand from its current size, and it would be required to maintain its current level of landscape buffer around the property borders with residential. And even with these requirements and limitations proposed within the SP, the light manufacturing use or the cabinet making business still isn't consistent with the community plan or the surrounding residential development. So staff recommends approval. Approving an SP in this location would make the current use a conforming use to the zoning district and would permit the continuation of this use on the site into the future. As it exists today, the business is permitted, not only to operate, but to expand because of its legal non-conforming status. It's basically treated as a legal use until that use is discontinued. A policy amendment or a policy change for this property with the zone change would place a non-residential policy in the midst of surrounding residential policy without any streets or anything else to separate it from that residential policy. And so staff recommends disapproval.
This item is open for public hearing. The applicant, if they're here, be allowed 10 minutes, and you can reserve 2 of that for rebuttal. The applicant or their agent here.
Mr. Maxwell, would you like to?
Well, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this is our family business.
Give us your name, if you would.
Sir?
Give us your name, please.
Larry Maxwell.
Okay.
My grandfather bought this property in the mid-50s and built the cabinet property, the building on it that we're still using now. Before that, it was in rental property further down Charlotte Pike, like I said, since the late 40s. We don't have any intention of going anywhere unless we're forced to, of course, but we're currently on our 4th generation of operating the business, which is my daughter. And the construction business has been pretty bad in recent years. I've spent most of my cash up just trying to stay in business since 2007. I feel like we've made it right to the edge where business is starting to pick up. And now the only reason I need this change in zoning is to make the property worth enough to carry a line of credit at the bank. The way it is now, it's being residential. It's virtually an acre of property with an old building on it. That's a liability, if anything. If somebody wanted the property, that it cost them more to tear the building down than the property is worth, probably. But if it can be commercial, then it would support a $250,000, $300,000 line of credit at the bank, which would help us stay in business, which would help us continue to supply jobs to Nashvillians, to putting cabinets in all the new construction that's just started in the last few months right now. I really feel like business is picking up in a hurry, and I've got a lot of faith that we've weathered the storm and we're ready to go to work. We work anywhere between 5 people. I've been down to as few as 2. Now I'm up to 5. There's 7 of us in the building right now, and we can work as many as 25, counting our installers out in the field and stuff. Plus, if we're commercial, the city makes out with more property tax. So it looks like a win-win for everybody to me. But at any rate, we have no plans to do anything with the business. Regardless of whether the zoning change goes through, we'll keep on operating just like we're doing and stay right there. We're not going to get any bigger. My grandfather and my father kept it the small size, and we don't want it any bigger. So other than that, we have no plans other than to hopefully stay in business and keep on trucking. So appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you. Anyone else here wishing to speak in support? Does anyone here wish to speak in opposition?
Yes, I'm Bernard Pickney. I live at 4604 Dakota Avenue. And my family and I have been buying property in the area around Watts Lane for the past 30 years, and we have 5 pieces of property. And since this doesn't fit into the community plan, it's putting commercial activity right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. We just think it would hurt the value of property and wouldn't be good for the neighborhood. And that's why we're against it. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Applicant, if you've got 2 more minutes for rebuttal, if you have anything else you'd like to say. No? Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing? Motion second, close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? Greg?
Well, I know we get in these situations quite a few times. I tend to fall on the side of a person that is, I look at the surrounding area. I know the area. The business has been there since 1950s. It's not changing anything. And I'm inclined to support it because I think that we get down to the technicalities, and I think I've spoken on these terms before, where a bank won't lend money because of zoning. And I think that for a 50-year-old business, 60-year-old business, the neighborhood probably grew up around the light commercial. The business owner doesn't have any plans to do anything different. I commend the staff for working with them and keeping the same zoning. But I just cannot vote against something that would put a man out of business. And, I know that we're here to look at the general plan and all of that, and sometimes these little things get left out. They're not talked about in the general plan meeting. And I think that the process sometimes leaves these things out. And while I appreciate the neighbors coming and speaking, I think that it's prudent for us to realize that this business has been here for a long time. And so that's where I'm at.
Andre? Stuart?
I was reading the parts of this that deal with the SP and the restrictions that the staff has obviously worked to help the applicant with in case we did approve this. And I would not be for this without an SP. But the SP guarantees that the next owner can't just put something radically different here. And I think there's a nice set of details about the SP. It's an unusual thing to agree with Commissioner Atkins, but in this case, he spoke very well, and I believe a common sense approach is indicated, and I'm going to support this.
Hunter?
Sorry.
So, is there any way to tie zoning to the particular business or owner in terms of its? There's not.
No, it's tied to the use. It's not tied. It can't tie to the business. But the only permitted use under this SP if the staff alternative conditions, and again, we recommend disapproval, but the alternative conditions basically are that it can only be used consistent with R6 zoning and for a cabinet shop.
Okay. And then, and an SP comes up every 4 years for review. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Judy?
Thank you. And so with those limitations and it only being used either for residential or the cabinet shop and being reviewed every 4 years, I have no problem supporting this. I think, like my colleague said, I believe that the neighborhood probably grew up around this business, and this business is probably an anchor for the neighborhood.
Phil?
Well, I guess I'm going to be the old grouch, but I have concerns about this. I really do. I appreciate the fact that the family's been in business all that length of time, but I'm wondering about how many other residents it's going to affect and how it's going to affect the value of the surrounding properties. Where is the closest light manufacturing or similar business that would be near this particular piece of property?
The closest non-residential business would be over on Charlotte Avenue, and I'm just going to the aerial.
How far?
It's about a quarter mile to the west.
Yeah, that's significant. I think it's significant. And you know, to me, when you've got somewhere between 5 to 7 people, that is really a little bit on the strong side of light manufacturing. And if the business is getting that good, I think the best thing that the applicant can do would be to start his own business in another place, just considering the realistic market now and everything. So I think well, that's just my opinion.
Councilman?
So if we approve the alternate, the use is limited to what's there as far as a commercial use, right? And they can't expand beyond the footprint that they're in now.
They could expand they're around 4,500 square feet right now, and the SP would allow them to expand up to 5,000 square feet.
So they can add another 500 square feet. Okay.
Square feet.
So currently, without any change, can they expand as
they are allowed,
grandfathered business?
They are, yes. They can expand under
So there's no limitation on how much they could expand
they would have to stay within the FAR and setbacks of the R6 zoning district.
Right, but there's enough room there that they could significantly expand.
They could expand more than the SP would allow them to expand.
Okay. So we heard the owner say that they have no plans to expand, but if this property were sold to a new owner, they could continue this non-conforming operation and they could expand, right?
That's right.
Okay. I really have difficulty when we legitimize an existing non-conforming operation. But in this particular instance, for me to contain what's there at its present level is the lesser of the two evils, to leave it wide open to future expansion once this family might sell the property. I appreciate the owner's case that he's presented and his presence here and his need for new capital. But in supporting this, I want to be clear that my only reason in supporting this is for containment and nothing beyond that.
Rick, I want to be sure I understand. It says in this uses, if the conditions, if it were approved, the conditions we're setting on it should be limited to light manufacturing and single-family residential. I thought I heard you say a cabinet-making business.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what the amendment is.
Yeah.
So that was
Greg, you want to go through what the actual?
No, I remember. Sorry, that it would be really limited to. So in other words, if at the end of the day, if they decide to sell and somebody wants to buy it for some other light manufacturing use with the amendment, they couldn't, and with the SP revert to the existing zoning, what would happen?
If with the intent of the revised condition is to limit the use to the cabinet making use. And the only other use that would be permitted beyond that is residential.
Okay.
Single family residential.
So basically, if you purchase that and you wanted to have some other light manufacturing or commercial use, you'd need to rezone the property.
Right. Okay. So I guess then my question is, and maybe I need to ask the applicant, but is that going to satisfy the bank? I mean, are we doing this? in understanding the plight of this actual good neighbor who's been there all these years, is the bank going to say, if you default, I'm ending up with a piece of property that's residential, it's back to my other zoning, I mean, it's back to my other value, and I don't care. I mean, that doesn't help. It doesn't help. I don't know. Would that solve it? Or should we not be asking that question? I mean, do you see what I'm asking?
Planning staff helped the applicant with the plan, and we went through all the aspects of it with the applicant, and our understanding from the applicant was that the intent of the SP should make the current use a conforming use, and this SP would make the current use a conforming use, and the only other use it would allow would be the single-family residential consistent with the current R6 zoning district.
And the applicant was willing to accept that?
Yes.
Okay.
I know we don't have a bank representative here, but I'm not sure I understand from the bank's perspective what risk changes with this. In other words, if we're limiting them to what they have now, and they currently have rights to be there, is it just a technicality in how the bank assesses the property, or how, when the red flags that go up when they offer a line of credit? Or, I know we don't have the bank here to answer those questions.
It may be some national regulation or something. I mean, there may be something like that.
Could be, but it's.
I'll just be honest. The conditions of the rezoning would be much more limiting than the current non-conforming status, because under the current non-conforming status, they have 2 years to reestablish a use. They could establish a use that's lesser, as might be interpreted by the BZA. So they have other parameters than under the current zoning, but that's not what we've been requested. We're suggesting that the disapproval would be the appropriate course to take.
So does the bank know that it's more limiting than? Okay.
Not our. Greg was next, didn't you?
I want to ask the applicant, is that okay? I mean, is this current plan? Buddy?
I started out by going to the bank and asking them if we could do this. Will it go by you all? And they said, fine.
Okay.
Stuart?
They wanted to get rid of the grandfathered in clause.
Yeah. I had always understood that banks, I don't really know any banks well, but that they really don't like the word non-conforming use.
Right.
I think that's what this boils down to. And I think the staff's done a good job of crafting these conditions. It's an unusual case that the staff made the right recommendation to us from what they needed to do, but I just think in this case the right course would be to approve with the revised conditions.
Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the revised conditions that staff set forth.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
One
no. Any opposed? One opposed. Okay. Sorry about that, Phil. Item 8. Salem Town Conservation Overlay.
Conservation overlay. I remember those things. I think we're trying to. Looks like they know each other.
Commissioners, this is item number 8. It's the Salem Town Neighborhood Conservation Overlay. The request is to apply a historic conservation overlay to the Salem Town neighborhood. Staff recommends approval of the overlay with an amendment to the overlay boundary. Shown here is the Salemtown neighborhood, and the boundary around it is the proposed overlay, historic overlay boundary in the current council bill for this overlay district. And in the red is the Salemtown historic overlay boundary approved by the Historic Zoning Commission on February 20th, and this is the one that's recommended for approval by planning staff. And you can see it basically surrounds 4th and 5th Avenues from Garfield on the south to the interstate on the north. As for policy, there are 3 different community plan policies within the Salemtown neighborhood that we have to look at with this recommendation. The first one is the neighborhood maintenance policy. This neighborhood maintenance policy covers most of the revised boundary and is probably most compatible with the intent of the conservation overlay because the intent of the maintenance policy is to maintain the existing block pattern and the single-family building form already present in this policy area. The next policy is the neighborhood evolving policy. This covers much of the area to the south and to the west. This policy recommends higher residential densities and some larger building forms and could be less compatible with the intent of a historic overlay. As proposed, there'd be about a half block of the revised boundary that would be within neighborhood evolving policy. The neighborhood evolving policy does still recommend preservation of historic structures, so the inclusion of this half block would still be consistent with the neighborhood evolving land use policy. And the last policy is the neighborhood center policy. This is the only non-residential policy in the Salemtown area. But because this neighborhood center policy recommends modestly scaled building form in its non-residential uses, this policy will also be compatible with the intent of the conservation overlay. So staff recommends approval of the overlay with the amended boundary, the boundary in red. The smaller boundary is more consistent with the intent of the land use policies, and according to the historic zoning staff, it contains the largest percentage of contributing structures within the Salemtown neighborhood.
This item is open for public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support?
I'm Robin Ziegler. I'm staff with the Metro Historic Zoning Commission, and I just wanted to let you know that I was here. If you had any questions, I think Greg did a great job and covered everything, but just wanted to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Can we ask questions now during public? I'm going to do that. Could you, I was going to do this, but I'm glad you're here, Robin. Could you give us a brief overview of the council lady's support of this from the Historic Zoning Commission meeting, which we heard and is on record, and then I guess some explanation why the boundary is being proposed to be reduced in size, and yeah, that's all.
The reduction in the boundary is based on the greatest concentration of historic properties. There are historic properties scattered throughout the greater boundary, but we really wanted to keep that area where the greatest concentration was and allow for new development, as you probably know of, that's going a lot is going on in that area, in the other areas. And the councilperson, Gilmore, has been supportive of this and agrees with the revised boundaries. And the commission will be voting and adopting design guidelines at their next meeting on March 20th.
Stuart, do you have a question? Any other commissioners?
That makes sense, just because of the neighborhood plan that went on the northwest corner of the black boundary. Was there discussion of changing going from the neighborhood plan that had been on the books toward this just straight or rectangular? Were there not very many historical buildings in that section, or why did that get excluded when it had been in the neighbor plan?
Exactly.
There we go. Sorry, T4NM. That's the maintenance.
The area outside of the red dotted line just didn't have enough of a concentration.
And it remains in the maintenance policy, nevertheless, so it would at least fit our guidelines for maintenance. So okay, that helps. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any questions? Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Any other person wishing to speak in support?
My name's Molly McClure. I live at 1813 4th Avenue North. I'm the president of a neighborhood nonprofit called Salem Town Works, and last year I was the president of Salem Town Neighbors Neighborhood Association. So I'm the person that sort of got the whole project for an overlay going by doing an opinion survey. We started out with a computer survey and distributing paper copies of it to every inhabited house in Salem Town, and did not get a very good return rate. So in August, I went door to door to every owner-occupied house in the neighborhood to just give an overview of what the overlay would mean, and to take down, to quantify what the opinion was among the homeowners who lived in these homes. We had at that point a 90% response rate. Of that 90%, 85% said yes, they did want an overlay. If you count yes and maybe, I just don't know enough about it, I can't decide, it was 93%. And the people who seemed to feel the strongest were the longtime residents who even last year were able to see their neighborhood and its historic character beginning to erode. So we finished that up in September, and Council Lady Gilmore held on to it, worked with it, thought about it over the course of last fall, and I'm here in support of it, and to say that I know that a large number of the people who live there support it as well. Any questions?
Thank you.
I know we don't always ask questions. There was one. Are you in support of what Ms. Ziegler just said about the reduced area as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in support? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Please come forward to the microphone and give us your name and address.
Well, I'm Bruce Oldham. I live at 1187 Peninsula Drive in Gallatin, but my wife and sister-in-law own property, total of 9 lots together in the 1800 block of 5th Avenue North. So they're inherited from their parents. They grew up there, so they're longtime residents and know a lot about this area. The basic character, it's been a kind of a crime-ridden, poverty-stricken part of town for most of the time that we remember. It is evolving. The proximity to downtown Nashville has started, we finally seen new construction on this block for the first time in 2012. It's been decades since we've had that. And we're just concerned that some of these restrictions may actually stop some of that development from taking place. Most of these historic homes are they're turn-of-the-century worker housing, which means a lot of them are less than 1,000 square feet in size. A lot of them have been rental properties for many years, and they've not been well taken care of. But without getting permission from the Historic Commission, I understand a lot of these could not be demolished, which is what the solution has been in a lot of cases, is just start over with something brand new. What we've seen as far as new construction has been pleasing to us overall. We think it's helped. There's maybe one structure that we've seen that seemed out of place, but it's on 6th Avenue, which is now outside the recommended area. So we're opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? If you're going to speak, please come to the microphone and line up so that we can. Give us your name, please, sir.
My name is Felix Lubarsky. First time in my life I crossed with a historical overlay when I used to live in the West Nashville, and Mr. Summers brought the this department to our area. I didn't know anything about that. We vote for, in 2 years or so, I would like to enlarge my front porch and make enclosure, kind of sunny room. I'm a licensed contractor also, general contractor. And they said no. What's the reason? That I step further to the front property line, which is a very, very excellent argument. I went to the Metro Codes and took all the street, the property lines, and I brought it to them, showing that I would not. They also denied again, but for a different reason, that there is no structures like that in area. I went out and I made the pictures. Oh, I'm sorry. And they already denied me because they said that the way I put the windows, it's a wrong way. I didn't have the time to fight with them, and I left it alone. But, for example, I know a lot of my friends, builders, wooden windows. Why wooden? They are more expensive. They get rotted. They get warped. The industry makes now excellent vinyl, which I put in my house.
Thank you, sir.
Should I stop?
2 minutes, yeah. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
If I knew in 2 minutes, I would not stop.
Okay. Seeing none, no one's wishing to speak in opposition, is motion to close the public hearing. Motion second, close the public hearing. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Stewart.
We have come a ways in Nashville since historic and conservation zoning was the only way to protect the general scale of an area. And it's not always the only way now. There are many ways where we can take advantage of architectural skill. And so I don't think it's an open and shut question, but my impression is that this area, which I pass through every day, is right next to Germantown, and I think what will happen in Salem Town in this area is somewhat like what has happened in Germantown. It is true that there are a lot of small homes, but actually that's something we kind of like, I think, on the commission, is a way for people to have a small place if they want it, medium place, large place, close to the city. So while there may be other ways to get to where these neighbors wanted to go, their levels of support and the work they've done and the reduced recommendation from the Historic Zoning Commission persuade me that this is probably the way to go.
Hunter.
I'd like to ask Ms. Ziegler if she could just explain briefly the difference between a historic conservation overlay and historic zoning overlay for the commission.
Sure, thanks for asking.
Especially relative to demolition.
And changes?
Yes.
Yes. The historic preservation overlays pretty much review all exterior alterations. So someone changing out windows, doors of an existing home might need a preservation permit, and certainly demolition and new construction would require that as well. For neighborhood conservation overlays, like what is being proposed here, we're really only looking at new construction and demolition. So someone wanting to change out their cladding, their windows, their roofing, their doors would not have to go through the permitting process. It would just be for new construction additions, which is new construction, new garages, that type of thing. Also, this district, although this is the greatest concentration, its number of historic properties is about 51%, so there's still a great deal of opportunity here for new construction. As you know, these guidelines will just help to guide that new construction. Did that answer? Thank you.
Well, can I just go out of order while she's up here? Are there not some newly approved building products that are allowed in historic areas that that aren't the old-fashioned brick and wood that we do allow now?
Absolutely, and that's a great point. Especially for new construction, new materials are approved, things like the hardy panels and lap siding, that type of thing, manufactured stone, fiberglass and aluminum-clad wood windows. There's lots of new products out there, and there continue to be some really great products coming up, and we always look at those.
Other questions, Robin? Okay.
I just wonder if the gentleman understood that then, what that difference was.
I'm not sure. I don't believe we've talked with him before now.
Yeah.
But anyone is free to call us at any time. What's usually useful is for us to come out and meet with them and talk about their specific project, because every lot's a little bit different, every house is a little bit different, and it's sometimes hard to just give you generalities of yeses or nos.
So you all are not requiring people to put in wooden windows now?
No, we're not.
Okay.
Not in a neighborhood conservation overlay.
Any other questions from Robin?
Well, are you communicating with code so that they're agreeing with what you're saying?
Well, they have different guidelines. I mean, they have different ordinances to follow. So I'm not going to speak to, what their requirements are.
Good. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Phil?
No comment.
Councilman? Greg?
Well, I think my fellow commissioner, Mr. Clifton, and I are 3 for 3 in agreement today. I think that the Historical Commission has done a good job. And the information presented, I think it makes sense to reduce it, and it seems very logical to focus on the more historical area. So I understand the neighbors' concerns, but I think that there has been a lot of changes and allowances that allow for modern materials and that are not as restrictive. And so I think that this is a good compromise, and I think that the departments have done a good thing. Now, what kind of worries me a little bit, though, and what I've always gotten frustrated with in government is agencies not at least talking to each other and talking about the complications of their ordinances. So I always try to say that we are one metro government, and I know we have different departments, but I think that it's important for all of the commissions and all the departments to communicate, because a lot of the technicalities cause major construction delays and major delays to put new homes or renovated homes on the tax rolls. That's just my comment. But overall, this, I think, is good.
Is there a motion? Motion second for approval. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Hunter, any report from the Historic Commission? Feel anything from Parks?
We have our regular meeting next Tuesday at noon at the Parks headquarters. We had over 30 longtime employees that are retiring as of today. So rather significant. Had a very wonderful celebration of their services the other day. Some of the things we're having to look at from a budgetary standpoint are, and this was in print, so I think I can say it, is the closing of Shelby Park, which is significant. So I don't know if we'll be able to avoid that or not, but some of the things we're going to have to do. Now, I don't know if that's just the golf part of it or what, but anyway, there's something going on there. Just want to let you know about that. And other than that, we anticipate having a very good summer with already several activities lined up, and looking forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman, anything from the council? Executive Director report.
Several things. I guess technically at 4:30 today, Ann Hammond retired, so we appreciate her volunteer service to the commission. But more importantly, we appreciate the contributions she's made over the last almost, 12 years to making this city a very different place. Her dedication and devotion to quality living environments and to this community is really kind of second to none. And personally, I want to thank her for all the work that she's done. She's had to take a lot of things off of my back, and she's done that very willingly and with a very good spirit, and I do appreciate that. Sometimes I get too far out there and she pulls me back, but she's been a good partner as we have worked together over these years, and I appreciate her, and I wanted to just say that publicly. Thank you, Ann.
And may I add, the Pope actually thought it was a great day too, so very significant.
You'll always remember this day.
Could I just say a brief word? Yes. I want to thank, first, Rick for inviting me to come here. It was such a wonderful surprise to see Nashville, to get to know it in the early years I was here, and then to have watched it change and grow and become such a strong, healthy, desirable city, an exciting city to live in. And I want to thank each of you and your predecessors. This is an outstanding planning commission. Your thoughtfulness and dedication is just unparalleled in my experience. And I want to thank you all for all that you have done and for the enormous support that you all have given to the staff. So I will be here for many more years, I think, as a constituent.
And you've been a good friend, and I know you'll continue to live here and continued friendship, and we appreciate all that you've done for the last, I guess it's 13 years now.
Getting on 13.
And thank you for all the commissioners and the staff.
Just a couple of other things. I want to first just kind of warn everybody. I'd like you to have an opportunity to present Mitchell Silver's comments. If we've got time, I think we're closing early enough. I don't have really much more on the director's report, but Mitchell Silver's presentation this past Monday night was of direct and fundamental interest to what this general plan is going to be. But it's also of fundamental interest to the decisions that we have to make outside the plan and what the community and what the changing implications are and all that. And it's about 45 minutes, but I hope, I don't know, there was at least, I know two of you there, that I hope you support my insistence that this is important to go through, for the commission especially, and probably more so than any of the others. The others are going to be good, and they're going to be interesting, and I certainly encourage you to hear Henry Cisneros a week from Monday, but this is the foundation to everything there, and it talks about why planning is important as well as what we're going to be dealing with. So if you don't...
I'll echo it. I went to this and found it amazingly important, and so much of what Nashville Next is about that we're learning from the steering committee is driving trends, things that are happening out in the country that are going to affect us whether we like it or not. And as he makes the point of we have to know how to respond to them well and plan. And he drives that point home beautifully, but also stimulating us to thought and a positive outlook. It's really exciting.
He was very direct in giving us a lot of estimates, percentages and figures exactly. And I don't think the important message here is not the exact figure that he's talking about, because he's going to be off, a few points this way. It's the direction. You got to pay attention to the fact that there's changes afoot, and it's going to affect the overall concept of this city. And I think he had a wonderful message and a really great wake-up call for us.
Quick introduction, Mitchell Silver is the planning director, planning and economic development director of Raleigh, North Carolina, but he's also the current president of the American Planning Association. So,
And the commissioners, the focus will be on this. We won't be being shown on camera, so feel free to get up, get a Coke, or go to the bathroom, whatever you need to do. So, great, we're ready.
Wonderful presentation. It was very moving, and That's something I'm glad that's being recorded because more people have to hear that story. It was absolutely beautiful. First, let me thank you for inviting me here. It's certainly a pleasure, and I have to commend this community and this region for actually placing diversity as one of the foundations for your planning effort. I get to travel the country. I've been to